Okay, so I wrote out an entire essay about United States bombing Iran. It took me a total of 3 days, and I have work in the morning, and I don't have time to read it all. So I'm gonna allow AI to do it while I look pretty.
On June 21, 2025, U.S. President Donald J. Trump ordered a series of targeted airstrikes against Iran's nuclear enrichment facilities, specifically hitting sites in Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan. This marked one of the most significant military actions taken by the United States in the Middle East since the Iraq War. Trump called the mission a decisive blow against a looming nuclear threat. But back home, it ignited a political firestorm, one of the most explosive moments of his non-consecutive second term. In the weeks leading up to the strike, tensions in the Middle East had been steadily rising. On June 13th, Israel launched its own preemptive attacks on suspected Iranian nuclear sites, citing intelligence that Tehran was enriching uranium at near weapons-grade levels. Days later, Trump declared that the United States would not stand by while a rogue regime threatens the civilized world. Iran, having already withdrawn from the 2015 nuclear agreement, also known as the JCPOA, had resumed enrichment at an alarming pace. Trump framed the U.S. action as a deterrent, stating plainly, if we didn't act now, they would have acted first. The strikes themselves were conducted using stealth bombers and submarine-launched cruise missiles, and according to Pentagon officials, the operation focused strictly on fortified military and industrial targets. With no civilian casualties reported, Trump hailed the mission as a total success, claiming it had completely obliterated Iran's nuclear dreams. But critics pointed out that while the strikes may have been technically effective, they hadn't neutralized Iran's capacity or its resolve to retaliate. What followed wasn't just international outrage, it was domestic upheaval. Congress erupted in condemnation and heated debate within hours of the strike. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez called the move an illegal and unconstitutional act of war, blasting Trump for bypassing Congress entirely and stating, "This wasn't defense. This was provocation by choice." Senator Bernie Sanders demanded an emergency session on the Senate floor, warning, "We cannot allow one man to drag this nation into war without debate, without consent, and without the truth. This is a crisis of democracy." Even within the Republican Party, the response was far from unified. Senate Majority Leader Tom Cotton praised the action as a clear message to our enemies, while Senator Rand Paul called it an act of aggression that could haunt us for decades. Vice President J.D. Vance was reportedly cautious behind closed doors, urging a more measured approach, though he still stood by the president in public. At the center of the backlash was a fundamental legal question. Did Trump have the authority to launch these strikes without congressional approval? Under the War Powers Resolution of 1973, a president must notify Congress within 48 hours of committing armed forces and cannot continue military operations beyond 60 days without explicit authorization. Lawmakers across both parties responded swiftly, introducing a joint resolution, demanding a full briefing and attempting to limit Trump's ability to initiate further military action without their consent. Trump, true to form, responded defiantly, tweeting, "Congress can debate after the job is done, not when lives are on the line." What followed was more than political disagreement. It was a full-blown constitutional standoff, echoing some of the darkest historical debates over executive power and war. Polls released just days after the strike showed a deeply divided public. About 51% of Americans supported the strike as a necessary defensive action, while 44% viewed it as reckless or illegal. Support was strongest among older Republicans and independents, while opposition was concentrated among Democrats and younger voters. Protests quickly erupted across the country. Thousands took to the streets in cities like Washington, D.C., New York, Los Angeles, and Chicago. College campuses lit up with student-led demonstrations, reviving echoes of early 2000s anti-war movements. International reaction was swift and tense. The United Nations Security Council convened an emergency session, where Russia and China condemned the strike as a violation of international law. U.S. allies like the United Kingdom and France expressed serious concern, while Israel praised the action and confirmed ongoing coordination with the U.S. Iranian officials vowed to respond at a time and place of our choosing. And experts warned that retaliation could come in the form of cyber attacks, proxy warfare, or direct strikes on U.S. assets abroad, whether seen as bold or reckless. The June 2025 airstrikes on Iran are already being remembered as a pivotal moment in Trump's presidency, one that not only redefined American foreign policy but also tested the limits of constitutional checks and balances. For Trump and his supporters, the move represented decisive leadership and strength-based diplomacy. For his critics, it was yet another instance of executive overreach, bypassing democratic institutions and risking broader conflict. As of June 22, 2025, the United States and Iran are not officially at war, but after these airstrikes, the region, and perhaps the world, stands on the edge of escalation. The consequences, military, legal, and political, are only beginning to unfold.